First of all, at our series of programs at the Institute, we have sort of an open introductory program called the Gateway Voyage, which everybody goes to. And then we have different branches of programs that go off from there depending upon what your particular interest is. If you're interested in your own personal guidance, getting in touch with your higher self, those kinds of things, whether or not you're interested in exploring your own creative heart energy, taking personal responsibility for your life. You can imagine that's probably our least popular program. And then there are those that are really interested in the death process and the continuum of consciousness after death. And if you want to step into that realm, our first program is called Lifeline. And in the Lifeline program, what we talk about is the idea of rescue. And again, this is an idea concept. We are not saying this is the truth of what's going on here, because sometimes people discover something else, which I'm not going to tell you about. But the format is that there are people that get trapped after death, not realizing that they have died. People who might be continuing to do their jobs because they're so driven to do their jobs, and they don't realize that they've passed. There are other people that move on after death to particular belief system realities. Listen, I saw a picture one time where God was sitting on a big throne on top of a stone white marble staircase, and I've been sitting here waiting for him for a long time, but he hasn't shown up yet. So there are what we think are belief system realities, where if you think that's what's going to happen when you die, that's fine. That can be arranged, and that's where you are. But it's also possible to break down that belief system to experience some larger dimension. That's what the Lifeline program is all about. And of course, it would go to this zone, which Monroe calls Focus 27. Now, for those people who do well in that program and have a deeper interest in the particular areas within Focus 27, there's a Healing Regeneration Center, a planning center, a library, lots of different little areas that are all in this realm. For those who want to explore those realms, then they come back to another program. And we suggest people wait a year or so to come back to the programs. Let yourself absorb this in life. And then a year or so later, come back to another program. What I'm trying to do is paint a picture for you here. These are very senior people. They are very experienced in this form of exploration, in understanding their own experiences and their ability to objectify, to take out of mental space and to put out into objective talking about or writing. So these are people who have had several exposures to the HemiSync technology. This study uses a way of looking at what they tell us about their experience, okay? And we analyze this work from the kind of story they write, from the objects that they mention, from their general feelings and visceral concepts of what they have. And then we also take a look at who they are. Where did they come from? Do people that have less education than others talk about things differently? Do older people talk about different things than younger people do? Do men talk about different things than women do? So we tried to look at several variations of this. And in every talk that you do, you have to put up an unreadable slide full of numbers. And so I specifically made an unreadable slide full of numbers here so that you'd know that this was a scientific talk here. I have a crib sheet here where I can read this quite well. And I'm supposed to say, you'll notice in line 2 the values of such and so forth there, okay? And so you believe just about anything I tell you. There's a couple interesting things when you do a study with people. Not everybody answers all the questions, and you wonder why that is and how come it isn't exactly the same set of people that don't answer all the questions. And you're honestly trying to collect this information. In terms of age, the people in the group were anywhere from 30 years old to 90 years old. And the biggest group of people, 39%, were 40 to 49, and the next closest, 28%, were 50 to 59. So our biggest chunk of ages are 40 to 60. And that goes along with what we know about the people that usually attend the Institute. Asked where they came from. We had, people who didn't know where they came from. But most people came from North America, about 10% from Europe, South America and Asia as well. In education, 16% of the people didn't know how educated they were. But interestingly enough, at the Institute, in this particular program, and this usually carries through in most programs, 32% of the people had college educations and 43% of them had graduate work. 6% only had high school educations. So we get a highly educated, middle-aged group of people here, even if they don't know that themselves. Fortunately, only 3% of the people didn't know what sex they were. And we had 52% male, 43% female. And in that group, there was a larger, percent, 14% didn't know if they were married or not. But most people were married, 46% married. And there's the same kind of a discrepancy, 12% didn't know if they had children or not. So I don't know how that goes. But we had a pretty even balance between males and females, between marrieds and unmarrieds. We were interested too in their medical condition. Were these healthy people or they're sick people? Overwhelmingly, 70% of them did not have serious illnesses. Overwhelmingly, a huge chunk of them. How about psychoactive prescriptions? The idea being, what percent of these people are taking prescriptions, psychoactive prescriptions? And 75% said no. Now, that's going to be interesting because we're going to ask later, are there experiences that they're reporting dependent upon whether or not they're taking psychoactive drugs or not? So that was why we asked that kind of a question. And in different lifestyle choices, we were asking them, were they really good at this Monroe stuff? Could they achieve these states of consciousness on their own without tapes? Which is, of course, our goal. We're not trying to give you these tapes and say, from evermore, you take one a day, for the rest of your life kind of a thing. Mr. Monroe talked about these as being training wheels on a bicycle. Learn how these states of consciousnesses feel. Is that a word? Consciousnesses? Plural word? These various states of consciousness feel. It is not. And then you can recreate them yourself. It is not necessary to, always do a tape exercise to get into these states of consciousness. And we would hope, of course, that you eventually integrate these processes into your everyday walking around life, that you redefine what normal is once you have access to these other realms. How about people that have been to other mind training exercises? Yes, they had been. Recreational drugs, 50% said no, they had not done recreational drugs. And the exercise and the smoking thing we were asked, I understand people lie profusely about whether they do a daily exercise or not. Yeah, I walked to the bathroom when I got up. Yeah, that counts. Kind of. And most of them being non-smokers. So I wanted you to get an idea from that complex slide that we kept track of all this.